I've written probably, I don't know, at least 10 screenplays more of films that have never seen the light of day. I could have 3 PhDs for the amount of research and time I've spent. But I come to the view that nothing's lost. I put it in more spiritual terms, and I'll say nothing is lost in the divine economy, because those screenplays are written on me. Fear of failure is one of the great enemies of the human spirit. It's very important to have the freedom to fail, for others around you in society to, in a sense, create a culture where you can fail, because, you know, nothing would succeed, probably even in science, if people didn't embrace a degree of failure. I think it was Thomas Edison who famously said, this is as regards his progress on inventing the light bulb, "I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work." And, you know, it's a very creative view of failure, that you need to be able to fail. I mean, I've had devastating experiences in the theatre with, in one case, for example, I'd had a very successful national tour of a play which I'd written and directed, and I'd had terrific reviews for it all over the country. And then a couple of years later, sort of intoxicated, if you like, with the success of that show, I took another one on tour, but it was a musical, and there was good music, and I'd written the play and the lyrics, but I chose the wrong choreographer, and there were certain elements within the production that were not good choices by me. And it was humiliating, really, to see. I mean, there were very good things about that production, and it actually did good business and so on, but it led me to later work with some brilliant choreographers and to get that side of a show absolutely on the nail. Because if you're going to do a musical and there's going to be dance, it has to be at the highest level. And it was only by failing, only by making that mistake and those misjudgments, that really I came to a place where I could actually produce a work that was of a much higher quality. And that's been true throughout my life. I've written many screenplays that have not been made, and it's almost difficult at times when people say, "What are you working on?" And I say, "Well, I'm writing a film about so-and-so," and people get very interested, and then 2 years later, "So what happened to your film about so-and-so?" I said, "Oh, well, it's not been made, you know." And I've written probably, I don't know, at least 10 screenplays more of films that have never seen the light of day. I could have 3 PhDs for the amount of research and time I've spent, you know, a treble doctorate from some university or another. But I come to the view that nothing's lost. I put it in more spiritual terms, and I'll say nothing is lost in the divine economy, because those screenplays are written on me. You know, it's not just that I've written them, they're written on me. And I am the person that's been affected by all that research. And none of it's lost, and it often gets rechanneled into a new work, a book or a stage play. In many cases, I've taken works which have become stage plays, or, you know, so that's a kind of failure. I mean, one of the most classic disasters or disappointments I had, which was not a personal failure, was I worked for several years on a documentary series for American television, a BBC co-production. I did a huge amount of research, and I wrote 5 hours of documentary for a wonderful famous American psychiatrist who was going to present the whole series. It was a fascinating subject. And on the first day of filming at Harvard University, I had a phone call. I wasn't at the filming, which I usually would be, but for some reason I was still in Britain. And I had a phone call from one of the associate producers who said, have you seen the Wall Street Journal today? And I said, no, I don't normally read the Wall Street Journal. He said, well, all right, go out and buy a copy of the Financial Times and read the front page and then ring me back. So I did. And on the front page of the Financial Times was the story of our key investor, the man who was putting up really all the money for this massive TV series. As I say, a BBC co-production. And he'd been arrested by the FBI because all his money, all the fortune that he'd made was really a pyramid-selling scam, obtained falsely. And so this man, with whom I had dinners at posh restaurants in London and thought was, a good guy and the rest of it, turns out that he was a criminal. And suddenly all my work, 2-3 years of work of research, was burnt up in an instant because the filming had to stop. The series was never made. I've got those 5 scripts up in the attic here at Freswick Castle. Nothing's ever come of them. One of them did impact a stage play of mine about Charles Darwin, actually. But, you have to deal with reversals, and you could say that from a production point of view, that was a catastrophic failure. And in a way, a failure of probably a research failure at some level, because I've learned that you need to investigate people, that if you're going into major partnerships with people, you need to, whether on any level in life, it might be business, it might be romantic, it might be some other collaboration, but if you don't know what this person is about, you can head for absolute disaster. So I've had quite a number of projects which have gone wrong because of collapsed relationships, but this was probably one of the more spectacular disasters. And I had to just pick myself up and carry on. But I think failure strengthens you, and I think risk is about the most important thing in life from an artistic and a personal point of view. The great risk takers have also been the great artists, and if you were risk averse, that's understandable, that's okay, but you're not going to change anything. And certainly not going to make money, and you're not probably going to write an important work of any kind, and you will fit within a team and a structure, which is fine. For a lot of people, that's how they need to be. Some people are temperamentally very unsuited to risk, but I do think it's one of the most precious things. That I think it's. I was listening to an entrepreneur recently speaking in a live event, and he said, he was quoting somebody, but saying, don't take care, take risks. So that phrase we all say to somebody, oh, take care, as they leave, take care. And this guy said, don't take care, take risks, which is a very interesting phrase. In other words, don't look after yourself, don't coddle yourself, don't sort of hide behind what others are doing, stretch out, just take risks. I think it's a very beautiful thing to be a risk taker. Obviously within reason, but I've just had so many failures in my life, but I've learned more from them than the successes, I will say that. I'm a better person because of the failures, rather than and I have had some genuine successes or awards or wonderful reviews or whatever, standing ovations, I've had all those things. But I've learned more actually from some of the failures, undoubtedly. And so in a way, I suppose I'm saying, if you take risks, you can't lose, which is a paradox. Because of course you can lose. You can lose money, you can lose opportunity, but you can lose the project. But you will not lose psychologically from a risk-taking approach.